Bootstrap is a 1977 Catalina 22, mostly stock, mostly it needs paint. Almost everything works real well on this boat, and like I said, it needs a little paint, but there's a philosophical issue going on with me and paint. Honestly, the paint issue wouldn't even be an issue, except that some previous owner did a pretty poor job of painting, and it's starting to come off. I didn't shove the two crib boards together when I left last time, and it's been raining like crazy. Let's see what's inside. Yeah, not too bad. A little tiny bit down there in the bilge by the volcano. And looking along here, looks like less than 1/4 of a cup. So, guess I got lucky. I wanted to interrupt our little tour of the boat and tell you a little bit about why I selected a Catalina 22. I could have chosen from any number of small boats. They made well over a dozen back in the 70s and 80s. And I had a San Juan 21, which was a great little boat, wonderful little boat. Nimble, easy to sail, lots of ballast, 400 pounds on a 1,200-pound boat. And I really didn't know very much about Catalinas, but luckily I talked to a gentleman who owns a sailing club down in Texas, and he clued me in to all the wonderful things about Catalina 22s, starting with they're easy to fix and you can still get parts. The keel hinge pin is external. If you can get the boat out of the water, you can take the keel out and replace it easily. And all the other parts that you need to operate a small sailboat are still being sold, either by Catalina Direct, the aftermarket distributor, or in some cases you can even get them from Catalina Manufacturing. And in addition to all that, there are lots of these little boats that unfortunately ended up in boat junkyards, and that's a ready source of parts. In fact, that's where I got my trailer and my stern rail. I had owned an orphan boat, and that's just a miserable experience. I loved my little Tanzer, but if I wanted a part, I had to make it, substitute it, or do without. And the Catalina wasn't that kind of a problem. So I'm going to go through the video and show you all the things I like about the Catalina, and at the very end I'll tell you a few things I don't like about it, but they're not a big enough problem to change my mind about buying a boat. The variation here in Western Washington is about 18 degrees from true to magnetic. If you were a land map user, you would call it declination. Here it's called variation. And just to make sure everybody's clear on what compass course we're steering, we listed magnetic, we listed compass course, and then we listed, do you add or subtract? No screw up since we put that up. Fingers crossed. These guys are sheet bags. They do nothing but hold the halyards, and they dramatically reduce the amount of spaghetti laying around your feet in the cockpit. Yeah, this little box is supposed to hold binoculars, made it out of starboard. Truth be told, it spends more time holding beer than binoculars. The rope clutches slipped on some lines, and things would slip, and they were hard to use with one hand, and I just decided that the cam cleats were better. They have pretty substantial backing plates down in the cabin. This knob is not a stock item. When we replaced the slides for the hatch, it became obvious that they were slippery, very slippery. So I needed some way to lock the hatch down when I was working on the cabin top. This little knob, the base is for attaching a bimini, and I bought these little star knobs online, and that locks it down. So I got the base, I got the star knob, and then I had to go to a local sheet metal shop and have them fabricate me some steel, stainless steel strips that would go there. This is the cleat that comes with the boat. Jam cleat, old, didn't work, sheet slip all the time. We went ahead and installed these cleats here, cam cleats. If you really want to make them work though, you've got to mount them on a pedestal. Otherwise, you'll get all kinds of problems with the sheet angle being wrong, and you'll get overrides on the winch. A little rubber gizmo next to the table mount is a rubber latch. There's two of them, and they latch the table in position and prevent that aggravating table collapse when you lean on it. a wonderful buy. You can get them from Catalina direct, easy to install. This is the space behind the port settee that goes into the locker. It used to be wide open and people could get in there and have all kinds of issues with the wiring. So I decided to close it up, make my own bulkhead, create a little locker space. And in this space, we keep the emergency flashing lights, some spare flares, red flag, lubricants, band-aids, and an air horn. Oh, and the boat registration. We went ahead and replaced the cabin lights with the LED model you buy from Catalina Direct. They're a bitch to install, really. Added this strip lighting to the cabin lights. That was easy to install. You just have to remember that polarity matters. Oddly enough, the original switch paddle from Catalina that was put into this boat in 1977 still works. I suppose eventually it'll stop working and I'll replace it. To the left is our USB charger. I need to fix that over the winter time. It's hooked up to the cabin lights, so what I'll do is put it on a separate switch on the sub panel and maybe move it so it's easier for the phone and navigation device. Like you'll see on so many Catalina 22s, somewhere the little door that goes up there in the bow is missing from that bulkhead. I think go ahead and make one at some point down the road. Haven't felt the need so far. Yeah, these bolts are a problem. Each time I work on something, I cut the bolts off and put on acorn nuts. I haven't felt the need so far, but I'll get to it eventually. This is the new sub panel, kind of a nice slim look. All of the wires fit down between the liner and the hull, and they terminate down in the locker where we have bus bars and fuses. I screwed up and left one of the cabin lights on 3 days ago. It's been pretty cloudy, but the solar charger mostly kept up. The battery's only down to 12.3 volts. This is the port locker under the settee. It's where we keep the cooking supplies. They don't weigh very much, but we keep them as far forward as possible. This is also the home of a whole bunch of wiring. All right, let's stick our head down into the locker underneath the aft settee seat. And you will get a nice upside down picture of what the wiring looks like left by the previous owner. And as you can see, it's pretty nasty. It was automotive grade wire and wire nuts. Bit by bit, we're changing it out with marine grade wire, proper connectors, attaching everything to a bus bar. Here's a look at the wiring underneath the port settee. Everything that comes from the switch is labeled. There's a separate bus bar for positive, separate bus bar for negatives, and there's a card that tells what every bus bar position does in addition to this. So this is where we keep the battery now. Let me move some of these sailbags and show you where it is. Yep. That's the anchor rod and chain up there, and that is the locker under the V-berth. So here's where the battery now lives. We've taken that 40 pounds of lead and we've moved it from the companionway all the way up to the front of the boat under the V-berth. Porta potty. Starboard locker under the berth. It's where I keep tools primarily. I'll go through them in just a second when I move the camera angle. Starboard locker, under the seat. 3 toolboxes. This one is engine oil, spare spark plugs, wrenches, things of that sort, and oh yeah, the manual. In the next one we keep all sorts of rigging supplies, spare tape, shackles, pins, rings, all the things you need, plus the hand tools in order to fix the boat while you're out there on the water. And the third box is just spares, spare air horn, lubricants, other stuff that didn't fit in the other box. That pretty much takes up this side. Port forward locker under the settee. Only thing that lives in there is the first aid kit and of course the bolt for the keel lock. I do include with our big first aid kit, I have 6 Israeli battle dressings in the other first aid kit. This is starboard storage locker at the aft end of the cockpit. Always try to keep lightweight stuff back here. This is where we keep the extra paddle, a line and a cushion that we throw to people that would happen to be overboard, and it's where we store the bumpers. This is just a cheap Harbor Freight solar panel. Works real well, keeps the battery topped up about 13.5 if there's any sunshine at all. The most interesting things about the solar panel is these clamps. Those two clamps cost twice as much as the whole solar panel and the regulator, but I have to say they do give you the ability to adjust the panel very easily to whatever the sun conditions are at the time you need it. These flattened stainless steel pieces were originally hook-shaped, and their job was to hold the boat hook tight up against the seat. And we'd step on them, and we'd step on them, and they'd get flat. And you know what? Even when flattened out, they keep the boat hook right where you need it to grab in a hurry. This used to be the aft running light. I had my buddy turn a plug, and then we painted it silver. It goes there. The aft running light is now up higher where it can actually be seen. If you're single-handing, you really need the ability to have somebody hold that tiller for you, and this does a great little job. I don't know, what can you say about the Catalina Traveler? It's pretty much worthless. If you had a really long tack that was close-hauled, it would help you drag the boom up to weather, but it's just on a day-to-day basis the best thing you can say about it, and this is an advantage. It's not in your way in the cockpit. Not say enough about this Ruddercraft rudder. This thing is incredible. You put one of these on your boat, it's not the same boat. But at $1,000, it's not something everybody can do. But man, if you can swing it, this is the rudder to have. Our outboard is the ubiquitous Tohatsu Sail Pro 6. I got lucky when I bought this one. They were out of long shaft, and I bought the extra long shaft motor. I'll show you in a second why that was a lucky break. Because the motor has the extra long shaft, I can leave it on the first notch, the props all the way down in the water, and when I'm single-handing, I can go all the way to the bow pulpit, and that prop does not cavitate. Yet, it's high enough that I can just reach everything when I'm trying to run the engine. Very handy feature. I'm a big fan of Frank Butler, and I think he designed an incredible sailboat, but these little scuppers are just worthless. They get clogged easily. You got to go down through a bendy pipe. They wouldn't drain the cockpit in half an hour. Terrible idea. These are the retrofitted scuppers that I got from Catalina Direct. Now they're not perfect. They're probably just barely adequate to the job, but the cockpit will drain. This is the port storage locker at the aft end of the cockpit. Originally this was supposed to be fuel storage, and that was a miserable idea, because who wants to sleep downstairs with gas fumes inside your hull? In later models, they corrected this and put up a bulkhead so that it was an airtight space. Borrowed an idea from the stingy sailor, glued a board inside, put some stainless steel hooks on it, and now it keeps the ropes separated very nicely. Have 150 feet of extra anchor rode in there, 2 dock lines and a heaving line. Yep, lock your outboard to your boat. Somebody tried to pry the motor mount and steal this one, but thank goodness they just gave up after a while. If you're going to do much single-handing, this is a must-have. It's a center boom sheeting block got from Catalina Direct, and I got to tell you, it saves so much hassle. You don't have to reach back there by the transom in order to find the main sheet. That's the coax connector for the antenna, and that, of course, is the wire harness for the running lights. Those things are going to get changed out. In fact, I already changed out the wire, but we're going to change out the coax this winter when I get it home. Of course, we have the deck organizers for the halyards and the topping lift. These running lights are not stock. You have to cut a hole in your hull, but worth it, since you can actually see them at night from a distance. Whether you're a single-hander or not, a nice set of mast gates really helps. When you're ready to drop the sail at the end of the day, it all stays bunched up there on the boom. It doesn't fall all over the deck. These came from mastgates.com. They do a great little job. This is the downhaul for the jib, and frankly, that little block doesn't work at all. Line gets knotted up and tangled. I'm going to change that out for a nice fair lead. Let's talk pigtails versus topping lift. This is a bad thing. you will forget that it's on there. You'll start to go downwind from close hauled and it will be stuck, and the wind pressure will make it really difficult to get unstuck. The topping lift, on the other hand, is a major component of single line reefing. It keeps the boom out of the cockpit when you're single handing. You know, when you leave, it's really a nice thing to secure the metal halyards so they're not clanging against the mast all night. We have many liveaboards in this marina, and that's important to them. So that's our boat, 41 years old, pretty darn good design. Think about that. I sail this once a week, and I've only got 3 complaints: fuel storage, scuppers, and mast step. That is, Frank Butler knew what he was doing.